Hello and welcome back to your coffee break. This is Joseph or Muffin, and today I'll be showing you how I made this, an alien world base with a strange vegetation. I'm making it on a mini plinth here, but you could just as easily do it on a regular gaming base, though you might get less space for water effects and such depending on your base size. So first you can see me handling the plinth here, and I've got a piece of cork bark that I'll be using as the main rock formation here. Now my creative process is I just put this on the plinth wherever I want, and I just move it around a bit and see what I like and what I dislike, and whatever comes into mind, that's what I do. And so this big piece of cork bark here is where the miniature will be standing, and in front of it we could use this smaller one and just place it maybe over here. In between these two pieces of cork bark is where I will be adding my water effects. As I get started, I will just quickly super glue these pieces so that they stick in place. I'll be adding a lot of other adhesives that will make these stick much better very soon. But this way I can get a good view and start the work without the pieces moving around. Now this first step here is something I learned from Squidmar Miniatures. He uses this coconut fiber that I've got here. Just sprinkle it on top of this cork bark, and then you can just use some super glue to make a sort of cement, and it dries really hard. This creates a texture just a little bit more natural, and it dries very hard, making it very durable. This here is a bag of random debris that could be found in a forest, I guess. I just bought it off of eBay. And I found a few pieces in here that I thought would be very cool for this base. At the start I was actually thinking this would be a piece of wood that was stretching over a regular river. Though once I decided this would be an alien world, it really turned out to be a great piece for representing tendrils that would be connected to the alien vegetation or other weird stuff. This first piece that I found was just a little bit too short to reach over the water here, so I just added a smaller piece on the other side to connect it. This is what it looks like now. I really like the extra element here that stretches over the otherwise empty air so that the water effects aren't so separated from the rest of the base. I added a few others of these that will be acting as tendrils as well, just sticking out into the air. The more stuff you add here, the more random it will seem, and the better the base will look in the end, I find. These are some products that I've used very often when I'm making bases. They are the Vallejo texture pastes. Here we've got the rough grey pumice, and it's probably my most used one. We want to add a bunch of different textures, so the cork bark, of course, will already be adding a very nice rock texture. But if we want it to look natural, we want to have as many different textures as possible close to each other. So this grey pumice will be kind of a small grit paste that you can sculpt however you want, and it will also look like small grit sand at the same time. We're adding this to remove seams and make the cork bark rock kind of meld with the ground, as well as just for the different textures. Secondly, I will be using some white stone by Vejo as well. It's also a basing paste, but this one is entirely smooth instead of the small grit of the grey pumice. And yet again, this is just to add to the variation in the textures on the base. I also found this little stick in my bag, and so I decided to add it in. Before I'm done with the basing materials, I will also be adding just a little bit of sand that I've got here. We've got some bigger ones and we've got some smaller ones. All in the interest of maximizing different textures here. So I'm just squirting out a little bit of PVA glue here so that the rocks can stick to it. This is about the stage where I decided I would be making this an alien world base. Found these models online, which I printed on my 3D printer. They are called Alien Vegetation by Helge on my mini factory, and they're actually free. If you want to make this type of base yourself and don't have a 3D printer, I don't think these are very impossible to just sculpt with a bit of Mili putty or green stuff. They're not that detailed. They come in very varying sizes here, and as you can see, the very biggest one is basically the entire base in size, so I won't be using that one. I selected a few different ones and I just started super gluing them in place. Now in my creative process I'm just kind of dry fitting these so I can see how it looks before I actually glue it in place. That looks about right. But right now they're kind of floating in space, and so this is kind of my go-to trick if I want to glue something onto an already made base that doesn't really fit properly. I just bring out my grey pumice and place some grey pumice around the object so that it melds into the rest of the world around it. And here's the base all primed up. As you can see, we've got like a larger rock formation that the model can be standing on, and we've got a smaller island. all covered with this icky alien vegetation here. This is just a quick zenithal highlighting here. And as I had my airbrush at the ready, I just figured I would do some preparatory work before I end this video here. So firstly, I'm just base coating the entirety of the rock formation and the ground and different textures here, everything except for the vegetation parts, in dark sea blue by Vallejo. Then I am adding a little bit of ice blue by Vallejo as well into the mix, and I'm just doing this from an angle upwards, similar to the zenithal highlighting I did before. Here the video skipped a little bit, but I basically just base coated the alien vegetation as well as the bottom of the water reservoir in hull red, also by Vallejo. The hull red is then being highlighted with a mix of hull red and ivory, after which I'm just adding straight ivory. For the plants, I'm focusing the highlights on the thickest parts and the top parts, but for the riverbed we're keeping the highlights in the middle and making it darker towards the edges. It would be perfectly reasonable to do this type of highlighting for a riverbed in the opposite direction if you were doing regular water, because water tends to look darker where it's deeper. But for this type of alien water or whatever liquid it is, I thought this would look very nice. And that's it. Here's a top-down view of the base in its current state. I hope you enjoyed that video. This was just part 1, where I built the base and I did some preparatory work with the airbrush. In part 2 I will be doing the rest of the paint job on this base, as well as applying some water effects and some oohoo blue effects. And if you're interested in that, make sure you watch part 2 as well. Until next time, work hard, but also do take a coffee break.